Hey girl, welcome to the Feminine Founder Podcast, where we're all about learning and growing professionally so that we can build a life that we are proud of and really love. My name is Caroline, and I'm a social media marketing expert, obsessed with teaching female entrepreneurs how to start, grow, and scale their personal brand and business online. This podcast is all about sharing our stories and learning from each other on how to navigate our professional journey so that we can live our best lives. So if you're just starting your entrepreneurial journey, or if you are growing and scaling an epic company, you are in the right place, friend. Today, I have Simone Pero with me. She is the founder of For Impact Productions, where she helps artists, filmmakers, and storytellers create their own ecosystems of support. She's a film impact producer, public speaker, and creator. Welcome, Simone.
Hello, hello.
So you and I met through a mutual friend, and we had a meeting first. And after talking to you, I thought you'd be a great podcast guest, and so I'm excited to have you today. You are a social impact advisor for creatives. You're an Emmy-nominated film producer, a public speaker, and founder of For Impact Productions. So I want our listeners to hear your background. How did you do it? How did you get to where you are? I want to hear your story, all the things.
So, well, I'm so excited to be here. So thank you for having me. So I founded For Impact Productions really with this very strong belief that artists are the first responders of social change, right? And especially the times that we're finding ourselves in, I truly believe that artistry and story really can help us see our way through a lot of these social challenges. So that is kind of the basis of what I do in the world. And honestly, if I look back, and where this all started is my mother. She was a single mom breaking convention, at least within her family and social circle. And she built this life of breaking rules that were meant to contain her. She was a single mom in the 70s. And, for example, when I was in elementary school on a secretary salary, she went and bought a 2-family house. And she became landlord, and I became the landlord's daughter. And we filled the apartment with tenants from all over the world: Turkey, Iraq, Hungary, Italy. And around our kitchen table, I would hear stories, and human stories. And they, as I kind of grew up in that, was learning really how stories are showing what is going on in our systems, right? And so that from that table is where I learned kind of the personal is political. And I think that is what drove me and launched me into my master's degree in public policy, going to DC, working with the federal government and the White House, and then later into corporate communications, and then, of course, now launching my film business. So it kind of all my worlds are now colliding in terms of helping artists really engage and understand how to resource their projects and bring them out into the world with a social impact bent. And we can talk about that.
Okay, I love that story. Thank you for sharing that about the apartment and about your lessons learned and experience around the table with your tenants that you and your mom had. That's really special. And I bet you learned a lot. I mean, it sounds like you had a lot of diversity. You were exposed to a lot of diversity, and that probably led to a lot of bigger thinking or forward thinking, I would assume. Okay, so I want to talk more about storytelling with you. Why is it so important? I don't care what it is, fill in the blank, that you do: politician, own a business, work in corporate, whatever it is, everyone has a story. So how do you tell your story to tell your message, or to communicate what you do, or why you're an expert, or why you should be the go-to, whatever, fill in the blank?
Yeah. I mean, I love that you see that, right? So from all of, working in public sector, private sector, independent, story is that core. In corporate, we call it, messaging, right? But it is based on the story of the company, the story of, the mission of where that business is going. In nonprofits, what's the story of the impact that you want to make in the community, in film and television and all of the things. It's about the story maybe of the character, right? And how are you looking at themes in a person's life or in the character development? So, at the core of it is story, but it's also knowing who your audience is. So in corporate, right, we talk about customers. And in government, we talk about constituents. In entertainment, film, television, we talk about audience and viewers, right? So we are creating stories with those lenses, right? And so a story for a consumer is, how would that product or your brand touch a person's everyday life, right? If whatever product it is, right? In kind of politics or government, it's the constituents care about what is that policy how is that going to impact how I put food on the table? How do I engage in my workplace? All of the things from an agency perspective or from a politician perspective. How are you going to help policies to help me in my life, right? So it's like they're telling the story to help them with their story, right? So there's a connection there. And so the core of the story is looking at themes. It's looking at an emotional language. In film and television, there's a sensory experience that you're creating too, right? So you have both the visual medium and in word. So you're always looking at kind of what are those emotional touch points in that story. And, neuroscience has proven how story really helps us think about things in new ways, and it connects us to maybe take action. There's been a lot of studies about that lately. So really looking at what are the core themes, what are the core motivations as a human. Kind of we go back to the human and changing hearts and minds, no matter if you're in corporate, government, or in media.
Okay, this may be a very baseline question, but as I'm sitting here listening to you talking, it's like my wheels are turning about, okay, everyone has a story, right? So how do you know which one to tell?
Let's take a quick break.
Do you own a business and know that you should be using social media to market it, but don't know where to start? If this is you, do not worry. Earlier this year, I started the Feminine Founding Marketing as a social media agency as a spinoff to this podcast, as a premier luxury social media company to help small business owners start, grow, and scale online. So if you're ready to crank up the visibility and stop playing small when it comes to social media marketing, send me a direct message. I'd love to see how I can help and best support you.
Ooh. And again, it goes back to who's your audience and what is it that you want to project into the world in that moment, right? So it's as part of like the work that I do with filmmakers, I have filmmakers come to me and they want to change the world. And I'm like, okay, let's get a little practical. What does that mean? So if it is a narrative, if it's a fiction film, we look at, okay, what are the characters going through? What are their story arcs? And, it could be very subtle. I even, even though if it's a horror genre, we can always find what is the story that, what are we trying to convey here? And I work on films and projects that have a social impact, right? So what is that thinking that you want to change in the audience when they see the film or content? Or what is the motivation you want to give them? What do you want them to leave the theater or their living room with? So it really depends on both the maker, like who's delivering that story and them understanding, okay, who's the audience and how do I want to contribute to their growth, hopefully, and evolution there.
I didn't think about it like that. Like, okay, what do I want to share? And then how is it going to impact my viewers or audience or constituents or whatever the fill in the blanket is? And you really have to think about, it sounds like multidimensional, like what are you willing to share? And then what is going to resonate with them? Like, what are they going to hear when they hear the message?
Exactly. I mean, just in speaking with you today, it's like, what do I want to share? Right. And what stories in my life or in my work would connect to you, your audience, and what I want to share with the world right now. And for me, right now, I want to share all about artists for social change, right? So I go back and I really thought about that question, and it's kind of just bubbled up for me lately. It's like really what happened with my mother and growing up. And that might sound cliche, but it was really so connected to the work that I do today. And I had no idea, right, that was happening. I just thought it was normal that we had United Nations in our house all of the time. And we would take our tenants to doctors and deal with government agencies or deal with their families overseas or dealing just to get to school every day. Like, so, and like, those are all, you could connect a public policy to all of that. And I was like, okay, this is something I'm really interested in.
I love that. And that is a special experience and a unique one. So thank you for sharing. Okay, so I want to switch gears here and I want to dig more into the social impact piece because it's fascinating to me and I want to learn more from you about it. And I want my listeners to learn more about it. So I'm going to ask a very baseline question of what exactly is social impact and how can it be used in shaping culture and change? So two-part question.
Yeah. Well, there can be many definitions of social impact, right? And from my purview, it's really about visual storytelling in terms of content, media content for social impact. And this is so social impact is really about how are you, whatever the project is, it could be a project, an initiative, a film, anything that we do in life, what kind of impact is that having on the larger society? And larger society can be maybe just a community. It doesn't necessarily have to be the world or the country. It could be like what's in our backyard, what is in our school district. That is a social impact. Are we, the baseline, right? The early stories were like, get on the PTA to get a stoplight on a street at Four Corners that was never there before. That is a social impact, right? That we are doing something that, yes, may help my individual experience, but also for many. So social impact is about what is it about that what we do can have an impact for many. And I guess the second part of your question is about larger, what does that look like? And it can be public policy. What is it that we are doing as an individual to impact the collective? So is it looking at making a piece of legislation change, and how does our project help make that piece of legislation come to life? Or how do we educate policymakers? Again, it could be on a local level, state level, federal level, international level. Education, that's another part of social impact when I work with projects. It's, do you want to get your film or story in schools? Do you want to have the district? A lot of schools have my friend has a documentary club that she brings her fifth graders in and they use the film, and then we create curriculum guides. So social impact in film has many layers. So we're trying to give tools. I always say it's like everything outside of the screen. So to the filmmaker, like you go make the best film possible. And then as impact producers, we take that and go do in the world. So bringing it to schools, creating a curriculum guide, bringing a brain trust together around the film, cultural conversation. We also work with, how do you get reporters and media to talk about the issue in a new way with this either the story or kind of that human connection again, right? So media is always looking for new ways. So that's impact, right? And so these stories add up, and social media, right? So we run social media campaigns now. Maybe we get influencers and celebrities and all of us to start talking about the issue, and film or television or any sort of media content that I work with, or artistry. It could be a play, it could be a dance. How are we expressing that issue with this art form?
Even I'm guilty of this. When I was reading about your history and everything, and I was sitting there thinking like social impact, like, wow, my mind immediately went to like changing the world, or, government policies, or like feeding the hungry, or like the really big issues that we all know exist in this world. But you made a great point about social impact can be exercised and used at a small level, micro level, like at the school with the PTA, need a red light put up or stuff like that. And so I think that's really important to think about and recognize that even those small things make a big difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, we don't all need to be on the world stage. And yes, we can maybe write a check to a charity or to help support, and that is needed and amazing. And we have to keep doing that for things that we care about. And it doesn't necessarily have to always be financial, is my other point, right? So the social change really comes, right? We all see it in the world with little steps, right? And it takes decades. I worked with the Federal Labor Department, and we worked on the Family Medical Leave Act, that it took 40 years to get that one in. And so these things take a while, right? And then how it then seeps into our daily lives. And so things take time. And I'm all about positive, forward-moving change. And yeah, so I rely on our individual actions to kind of have that, ripple effect into something collectively and larger.
As I'm listening you talk about this more, I keep going back to the word purpose. No matter what it is, even if it's small, need something changed at the school or need a government FLA policy, so we can have that going. It all matters. And I think working towards those things and having the goals are so important.
Yeah. And that's a lot of the work that I do, in that if you're looking to bring resources into your projects, into these initiatives, purpose is a huge purpose and passion, right? So when you're pitching a funder, you want to show your passion for it. But really, what is the purpose of your project in this, spectrum of making that impact, whatever it is? And so we work a lot on kind of really identifying and getting clear on what that purpose is. I actually created this guide, Your North Star for Social Impact, and it gives you questions about what is your why, but what is the purpose, and how do you see your work, or what your voice or initiative in the world, where do you see the purpose of it, and what could the outcome be? And you kind of put it out there, and you don't know if it's going to happen or not, but you have a direction. And that's the main point of getting people on board, is that really showing that you have a direction. I have a purpose. I'm going to go do this, and I'm going to get 5 people on board, and we're going to go do.
Give me an example or something that you're really passionate or excited about with your company or with your clients. I want to hear all the things.
Oh, yes. So what I'm really excited about right now is that I have been, a lot of my work has been behind the scenes for most of my career. And whether it's, speech writing, whether it's for, or whether it's supporting corporate messages, and then also supporting films and filmmakers. And what I have been doing now is really expanding out and coming out from behind the scenes, behind the camera, to really equip more artists. So I'm working more with artists now, and really about helping them create these ecosystems of support to help fund their projects, to help them get seen, help them get out in the world, and then help them create these campaigns for impact. So I am now giving master classes, and I have this Artists for Impact program now that it's a 4-month program where we workshop projects, but really help them kind of every week do the things that need to be done, because we're also finding in our business for sure, so much is changing. We have to become entrepreneurs now with your project. And so it becomes lonely as an independent content maker. And what I'm finding is that people are coming to me that, yes, they want help with the strategy or help finding funders and figuring that out, but it's really about having someone just be with them on this very lonely process when they keep getting doors closed, saying, nope, can't fund you, but then keep on going, because so many of these projects that I work on are not like the big blockbusters. I work on, projects that more independent minded, artist minded, and mission minded. And you have to have that internal passion, purpose. You have to show the business case of the project. And so there's all of the things that go into that. And so I'm really here now to support as many artists as possible in much more of a broader perspective, rather than just kind of working on one film at a time. So I'm very excited about that.
I love that. And that's a great transition into how can our listeners find you?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn mainly with my name, but I also have my weekly newsletter, which you can get at forimpactproductions.com, which is FOR impactproductions.com. And also I have this free guide, your North Star to Social Impact, and that will get you in my orbit here. And I give weekly tips, stories about how this impact world is happening in terms of artistry. And so I'm excited to be in touch with as many people as possible to really talk about this stuff, because I think, again, we need us telling our stories to help us get through a lot of the challenges we're all facing.
And I love that too, just so everyone listening to this podcast can know, like, we're all going through it together. So it sounds like you've created an amazing community where people can have more fellowship and friendships and not do it alone. So I love that.
Yes, we are in this together for sure.
Thanks, Simone.
Thank you so much, Caroline.